The town of Briar Hill looked peaceful from above. Tree-lined streets, a white steepled church, children riding bikes. But on the ground, beneath the surface, something was festering, something unspoken.
They said my brother Marcus resisted, that he matched a description. They said it as if those words could bury a bullet. But I heard the scream through the phone. I saw the blood on Mama's hands. I knew they lied.
Marcus was 16, a quiet boy who played saxophone in the school band. He loved comic books and drawing cities that didn't exist. But none of that mattered, not to Officer Briggs. To him, Marcus was a threat. Because of his skin, because of where he was walking, because he didn't lower his eyes.
They chased him through the school parking lot. 3 cruisers, 1 unmarked car, no weapon, no crime, just a hoodie and brown skin. The coroner said, gunshot to the back. Mama said, my son had dreams. And I said, this is war, and I'm done being quiet.
The funeral drew hundreds, more than the mayor expected, more than the police liked. Black mothers in veils, white allies holding hands, tension like thunder in the air, signs rose like fists. Justice for Marcus. No more names. Stop killing us.
The first night we lit candles. The second night we marched. By the third night, they brought in the National Guard. They called us agitators. But we were mourners. We were a choir of pain, singing names the wind tried to forget. Marcus.
The city said it was investigating, that there would be full transparency. But Marcus's name vanished from their briefings. The officer returned to duty within 2 weeks. No charges, no questions, just silence. That kind of silence breaks you, like a scream no one hears.
They wanted us to move on, pretend Marcus never lived. But we remembered his laugh, his crooked drawings, the way he carried his backpack like it was full of secrets. So we painted his face on the old library wall. Bright colors, unapologetic, alive. And they painted over it in gray.
They couldn't let him live in memory, because memory has power. It ignites, it spreads, it refuses to die. So we picked up brushes again and again, until his face lit every wall in the city.
The murals didn't bring Marcus back, but they made him impossible to forget. Kids asked, who was he? And we told them, every time, with shaking voices, with full hearts. We told them how he died, and more importantly, how he lived.
We organized. No more begging, no more polite appeals. We stood on courthouse steps with candles and rage. They said we were too loud. We said silence is a weapon, and we were done being targets.
Then one day, a woman stepped forward, a cop. She had seen the footage, she had heard the radio chatter. She knew the officer lied, and she said it. On record, at risk of her life, her job, her family. Truth has a cost, but she paid it.
Everything cracked open after that. Media swarmed. The chief resigned. The city shook with tension and hope, because truth, when spoken aloud, becomes a storm. The courtroom smelled like cold metal and fear. Every seat was filled. Every hallway buzzed with tension. This was it, the trial, a chance for justice to prove it still lived.
I took the stand. My knees shook, but I looked that jury in the eyes, and I told them, Marcus was not a threat. He was my brother. He was human. He had dreams. He deserved to live.
They showed the footage. We heard the officer's voice, the calm in it, the lie in it. And when the defense tried to twist Marcus into a monster, we stood with photos, with school reports, with every piece of his story.
And then, the moment. The officer took the stand. He looked away. He stuttered. He sweated. And he lied again. But this time, we weren't alone. Even the judge looked different, like the weight of centuries had landed right on his bench.
After days of tears, rage, and testimony, the jury left. We waited. Minutes dragged, then hours. Outside, the crowd hummed like a living heartbeat, praying, hoping, holding on. The courtroom was silent. You could hear the wind brushing the windows. Then the door opened. The jury had returned. 12 people, 12 faces, carrying the weight of justice.
My hands trembled. I reached for Mama's fingers. She held on tight, like she was holding back a century of sorrow. The foreperson stood, cleared his throat, and then the words, "We find the defendant guilty."
A sound erupted, not a cheer, not a cry, but something ancient, like the voice of every silenced soul rising together, a deep, aching exhale of history. Justice had spoken, not perfectly, not fully, but clearly.
Outside, the city wept. Strangers hugged each other. Candles were lit again, but this time not just in mourning, but in memory, in fire, in promise. I stood at the courthouse steps and said his name, Marcus, and they all said it back.
The struggle wasn't over, but something had shifted. The walls had cracked, the silence had broken, and in its place, a voice had risen. Ours, together, still trembling, still singing, still standing. The courthouse steps faded into the past, but the echoes stayed. Whispers of justice still rang in our ears. Ariel's voice was no longer just her own. It became part of the city's breath. Murals bloomed across brick walls, Marcus's face, his smile, his resistance.
I was invited to speak at schools, at protests, at vigils, but not because I was brave, because I had survived, because they had tried to silence Marcus, and through me, he spoke again. Each time I told our story, I saw someone cry, someone clench their jaw, someone decide, this has to change.
Laws didn't rewrite themselves overnight, but pressure grew. Names were shouted in courtrooms, in Congress, in classrooms. The fire didn't go out. It moved. Through people, through policy, through pain.
Sometimes I walk past the old police station. They closed it. A new center stands there now, built by the community, with glass walls, so no one forgets what was once hidden. And at the front, etched in steel, justice begins with truth.
Some say Marcus died, but I don't believe that. Marcus lives in the mural paint, in Ariel's voice, in laws rewritten, and in every time we stand up when the world tells us to sit down. It started with one mural, then 10, then 1,000. The story traveled farther than we had walked, from Baltimore to Berlin, from silence to songs. Teachers rewrote curriculums. Kids asked better questions, and parents listened, even when it hurt.
A girl wrote me once. She was only 12. She said, I didn't know people like me could fight back. I cried for an hour because I had been her, alone, confused, waiting for permission to be angry. But now she was angry with purpose. She was ready.
The world did not become perfect. No story ends that easily. But it became louder, braver, more watchful. The lies didn't vanish, but fewer people believed them. And every time they tried to build walls again, someone else tore them down.
I still miss him. That doesn't change. But now when I speak, I feel him beside me, not as a ghost, but as a rhythm in my voice, as the warmth in a stranger's eyes when they say, "Thank you. I needed this story."
And the story goes on, with new names, new pain, new hope. It is not over. It never is. But now, it walks with us. And we know where we're going. 10 years had passed. A decade of struggle, steps, songs, and silence. Some wounds had healed, others had only grown deeper. But change, real, slow, trembling change, was finally here. The courtroom was packed. The officers who once walked free now faced judgment. The crowd held its breath, but no one begged. We stood tall, not as victims, but as witnesses of truth.
I stood on the steps of the courthouse, not in chains, but in light. In front of me, hundreds gathered. Behind me, justice echoed, and above me, the sky, clear and wide, spoke in colors of freedom. I thought of Marcus, of his laugh, his rage, his silence, and I said his name out loud so the wind would carry it where he could hear.
The verdict was just the beginning. Laws changed, but more than that, hearts opened. The world finally looked itself in the mirror and didn't turn away.
Now when I speak to students, I tell them, "You carry fire in your chest. Don't let the cold world put it out. Speak, march, write. Live like justice is possible, because now it finally is."
And as we walk forward, shoulders touching, souls lifted, the world listens. Because silence no longer rules. The sky has spoken, and we will never be quiet again.